You're listening to the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast. Here you'll gain tools to lead proactively, conquer overwhelm, and revitalize your law enforcement teams and your agency.
We're your hosts, Michael and Cathy McIntosh. Mike is a retired sheriff and current division chief in the Denver metro area with nearly 40 years of law enforcement experience.
Cathy is a business and branding expert and a longtime law enforcement wife with a unique perspective on the human side of law enforcement.
Together, we share a powerful blend of practical experience and insightful roadmaps to help you elevate your call to service.
Welcome back. If you even glance at the headlines today, you know uncertainty is widespread, and it hits law enforcement executives hard. Global volatility, community unrest, and agency pressures like budget cuts or staffing shortages can really create overwhelm. Many leaders react on impulse, freeze under imposter syndrome, or fall back on trial and error, eroding a team's trust and possibly even the agency reputation. We're going to talk about leading through uncertainty. And leading through uncertainty isn't just a skill, it's critical to strengthening teams and strengthening our communities. We really have to be intentional to lead through uncertainty these days. That is the only way to inspire confidence and to really elevate our teams. Great leaders overcome uncertainty by controlling what they can, by modeling integrity, and by guiding their teams deliberate and strategically, step by step. Today, we want to share the tools to help you lead with confidence and build trusted teams no matter the storm.
And we're facing a lot of storms, but as we zero in on the law enforcement aspect of things, can you share maybe a moment of uncertainty that has hit you hard as a leader?
Yeah, uncertainty really means that something's going to hit and we're not really expecting it. And I would tell you, the most difficult uncertainty that I've faced in my law enforcement career is when we lost a deputy to a line of duty death in 2018. That was really the kind of uncertainty that we never saw coming. And thankfully, most agencies don't become adept at navigating a scenario like that. We surely hadn't. It had been years since our agency had experienced something like that. We had a lot of bumps in the road. We had challenges along the way, but we were able to navigate our path, really, I believe, because we had built a solid team and had worked hard on developing strong community relationships. We were able to get through it all because we had already been leading with those deliberate, principled steps. We knew we had leadership in place that could lean on one another, that could carry our agency through the challenge and really lead our community through grief and the overwhelm that we were feeling at the time.
This whole conversation is one that deserves a lot of attention and a lot of focus, just navigating a line of duty death. And we're not going to be able to cover much of that today, but we have done an entire episode dedicated to this topic. So I'm going to make sure that we link that in the show notes. And I will just say, even as a family outside of the law enforcement agency, this was one of the greatest challenges, one of the greatest times of uncertainty that we have ever navigated. There's just absolutely no way to describe it. It required mustering a level of courage that I would say none of us knew that we possessed. And one of the things about courage is that it's almost the opposite of comfort. And so many times We'd rather stay in our comfort zone, especially as leaders. We'd rather stay in that realm of things that we know, that are familiar, that feel good, that make us feel confident and successful. But uncertainty is those times when things rise up that kind of knock us off course. They knock us off the stability that we've been experiencing, and we have to give up comfort. We have to muster courage, and we have to move forward with strength that honestly we may not even know that we possess. Courage and clarity are the things that are going to conquer the chaos. That's a huge point for us today.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I want to kind of start with is really talking about um, some of the pressures that we think that our listeners are feeling right now, given today's global and local chaos.
I would say, we keep talking about even just looking at the headlines. Every time that we pick up our phones, something new seems to be erupting. And for law enforcement leaders, it's even more of a challenge. And you and I were talking just this morning about the fact that in law enforcement, you guys see reality. You don't see even what the headlines say. You don't see what the fluff is. You don't see what the propaganda says. You see what's genuinely, really going on in our communities and in our society. And when you start to see this level of discontent and things that are just moving so quickly, sometimes it puts our communities on edge. So I would say that many leaders might be feeling unprepared. You mentioned imposter syndrome. That's really starting to kick in. People are starting to doubt their ability, their experience, their leadership purpose, and it's time to hold tight and to fasten in. Inside, they might be wrestling with doubt, wondering, what if I make the wrong call? What if I lose the respect of my team? What if I do something? What if I make a decision that's going to be harmful to our community or tarnish the reputation of our agency? And we've seen colleagues that burn out under this kind of pressure. We've seen teams start to tear apart, to misjudge one another, to miscommunicate. It can go downhill very, very quickly if we're not intentional about staying on top of it.
Yeah, wow. A lot to unpack there. And I would say for our listeners, whether you're executives, you're community leaders, really anyone that's answering the call to serve, there is no doubt in my mind that you have felt that. And we just don't want you to be paralyzed by that. Um, we we want to make sure that you have a clear path to lead
Mhm.
and you don't feel isolated or unsure as you're leading your team through this. There's a fear of failing your team, and we want to assist in that fear.
Yeah. We That's really the point of this episode is just helping you know that there's strategies that you can take. You're not just on an island by yourself. There's a plan, there's a purpose. You can do this. That's the overriding message. You can do this. And we're going to give you some tools today to walk through that. And that paralyzing feeling is one of the most dangerous, I think, for leaders. And it can lead to starting to avoid problems instead of stepping into them. But we have to remember that it's the action. It's moving forward. It's taking decisive action that starts to alleviate and calm the anxiety. So action alleviates anxiety. And I know that you've seen situations where leaders get stuck in that paralysis, and maybe they avoid making some of the tough decisions that need to be made. Describe that for us.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in law enforcement, I've witnessed this as a deputy from my supervisors. I've witnessed it when I was a sergeant. I witnessed it when I was a lieutenant. Um, Unfortunately, I even still witness it today in law enforcement organizations and different teams within law enforcement. Um, and what I always back to is it seems to always play out the same way. The immediate impact leads to uncertainty. And it's what is our next step and where do we go from here? And when we get that paralysis, or we don't really want to lead because it's difficult, this is really what kind of starts to erode confidence, both in the leader and in the team's ability to accomplish the task. The team without the leader starts to lose the confidence that they're really even going to be able to accomplish what they're supposed to accomplish. And you talked about chaos. And this is what really starts to create that chaos and that confusion. And if it goes unchecked, if that leader continuously avoids those big leadership decisions, the team's inherently going to start looking for another leader. And it's going to begin to drive a wedge of division in that team. And they're going to start wondering who is it that we're going to follow, and who is it that we can trust to get us through these tough times. And you start to see other leaders start to rise up and try to take control or try to take the lead in what's going on. And sometimes there's good ones that do that, but it also leaves the door wide open for even more division and another leader stepping in that is not prepared and is going to be avoiding those tough decisions, or the decisions that they're making are not the right decision.
And it doesn't even have to be a time of uncertainty to have that situation where leaders start to just have such a sense of doubt that they get paralyzed and don't do anything. It can be even letting someone go. Someone on the team maybe needs some correction, maybe needs some supervision to step in and make some molding and some shaping, and that leader who's in place is uncomfortable with confrontation, so they don't go in and fix things. They don't stay on top of personnel issues. And little by little, it does start to erode that trust. And I just think of, a house that succumbs to clutter. If you don't stay on top of the clutter little by little, if you let your mail stack up for a week, you're going to know that you've got a huge pile that you have to go through, and the job just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So there's this cycle of I'm too intimidated to work on it. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And pretty soon, wow, you've got just a bee's nest of problems that you have to try to take care of, and it's overwhelming. And when you pile uncertainty and some of the confusion and the chaos that's going on in our society right now, on top of that, it just compounds the problem. So it takes a really steady rhythm of steps to start to steer success, right? And we're going to walk through how to work with intention, how to stay on top of things, how to push yourself forward even when you don't feel like it, even when you have doubt, even when you don't know what to do. And one of the first things that we like to say is that we need to focus on what we can control and what we cannot control. And some of the things that we cannot control are what we're seeing in the headlines right now. We can't control the weather, for example. We can't control the political environment. We can't control things like national headlines and world headlines. But we can control our mindset. We can control the way that we communicate. We can control the way that we handle our emotions and our moods and the way that we respond to what's going on.
Yeah, I think as we look at, kind of what our next step should be as we're walking through this, it's really leading through current chaos.
Mhm.
And it's thinking, here's what we know, here's our next step, and start to create that rhythm, that cadence, that steadiness in our sphere of influence, even when the world wobbles.
for sure. So figure out what you can control, what you can't control, and then say, okay, here's what we know, and start to develop a plan. And then a next tip would be to model the behavior that you want to see. We know that your team reflects your leadership style. So if you panic, they're going to panic. If you stay calm, they're going to stay calm. Composure builds trust. And when you start to act with integrity and you admit things that you don't know, you stay transparent, you don't try to put on a show, you make decisive moves, things start to calm automatically. And if you want innovation, be the first one
Mm.
to personally take the risk. And if you want to bring unity, be the one who really becomes more others focused and starts to listen and figure out what the needs of the team are.
Yeah, that's great. One of the other things that I would say is important is that one foot on the brake and one on the gas. And I know that that sounds counterintuitive. And I also know that if you're really into music, you know that that's what Sammy Hagar says because he can't drive 55. But when you start to unpack that leadership in uncertainty, we really have to balance the caution. It doesn't mean that we stop, right? We still have to be moving forward. So we apply the brake. We look for the obstacles. We want to make sure that we're cautious about what we're doing as we're moving into this uncertainty. But we also have to move forward. We have to have that action, that putting the foot on the gas pedal and moving forward. We have to move deliberately, not recklessly, but we have to be moving forward so that we keep that momentum while we're managing our risk. The other thing that I think is really important is to do what I would say is take a tactical pause. And I'll give you an example. The first time that I really saw this was when I was in the Navy, and I was attached to an F-14 squadron stationed at Miramar in San Diego, and obviously flight ops and sorties were what we did. It was very important to our operation and our operational readiness. And there was a span of about 48 hours where there were three jets, fighter jets, that were crashed, not at the same time. Three separate incidents. One even happened at Miramar, out on the runway. And the flight operations in the entire Navy ceased for 3 days. And it was really that opportunity for the military leadership just to be able to take that tactical pause, look for complacency, look for errors, make sure that there was proper mindset, look for any navigational gaps. The pause wasn't stalling. It was really precision, and it was ensuring that our standards were where they needed to be, and maybe even now stronger as we moved forward in flight ops. And after taking that tactical pause, flight ops started again without those aviation incidents. In leadership, I think that we need to take a tactical pause, and that might mean halting a project to refocus our team or reassess our strategy, sometimes even mid-crisis. It's really kind of stepping back for clarity, make sure that we're seeing everything that we need to be seen before we move forward.
That's so important, and I love that you're talking about it. It's not stalling, it's not withdrawing, it's not avoidance. It's just getting clarity. It's making sure everyone's safe, and that's why you've got that one foot on the brake, because you need the ability to pivot
Mm.
at a moment's notice, at a second's notice sometimes. So the tactical pause, I'm sure you've seen some incidents like that in law enforcement.
Yeah, yeah, several times. And sometimes those tactical pauses can be hours, days, but sometimes they can just be really seconds or minutes. And um, I, I just, real quick, simple. The last time we were on a SWAT operation, there was, we all came together. We had our ops plan. Every ops plan has contingencies for obstacles that we might encounter. I've never been on a SWAT operation that went absolutely according to plan. But this one, one of the obstacles that we had was our primary entry point and being able to breach that. And we set off an explosive breach, tried to get through the door, and found out that it was very fortified. That was a pretty big obstacle. Now, we had a contingency plan in place, but it was time for me to take a quick tactical pause, make sure that our contingency plan was appropriate for where we were at and what we were doing, and then move those resources to that secondary breach point so that we could get into that home. Um, and obviously, after you make an explosive breach, the element of surprise is gone. Not only does the bad guy know that we're there, but the whole neighborhood knows that we're there. So it's you start to employ a different tactic, but it's taking that tactical pause just to analyze the situation and plan our next steps.
As always, we like to give a framework around the topic that we're talking about. So this is the point where we introduce our framework. It's an acronym. It's the CALM acronym because calm creates clarity and clarity conquers confusion. Um, so talk to us about the CALM acronym and the steps to lead through confusion and uncertainty.
Yeah, I love the CALM acronym because, first of all, we all know that if we can calm ourselves, or the team can calm themselves, we can start to grab a hold of the situation and be able to approach it in the way that we need to approach it. So anytime that we're in crisis, or approaching something with uncertainty,
Mhm.
it's really important to, as quickly as we can, start to calm. And it's control, assess, lead, and then move. So the control part is really what we talked about at first. It's controlling our own actions, looking at what we can control and utilizing that to our advantage. So we have to own our own actions, communicate well, make sure we're in the right mindset, and really it's letting go of what's beyond our
Mm.
influence. Just worry about what is in front of us right now.
Mhm.
And then the A is assess. Assess with a tactical pause. Step back, evaluate. Your team's morale, the risk, the opportunities, all of those things need to be first and foremost in your mind, as you start to navigate this uncertainty or this problem. You really need to ask what's working and what's not.
Mhm.
Just like that tactical pause that I took. It wasn't working to try to go through the primary entry point. Let's find a secondary entry point. And then the L is lead by example. It's really important for the leader to model resilience, really important for them to model integrity and transparency. Like you had already mentioned, um, the leader's behavior shapes the team's
Mhm.
response.
Mhm.
If you're not calm, they're not going to be calm. There's no hope of calming everyone if the leader
No.
themselves is not calm. And then last and foremost, we got to keep moving, but we need to move forward deliberately, right? We take those calculated steps. We balance the caution with the action. It's that foot on the brake, foot on the gas, and really make sure that we share the plan clearly.
So calm is that repeatable process that helps keep us grounded, helps keep us proactive, and helps us remember that we can weather the storms that come our way. So as a leader in law enforcement, which part of calm feels most natural to you?
That's I think that that's a great example. And one of the things that I've always tried to do just as a leader, um, in any situation, whether it's uncertain or I'm leading through something with certainty, is really lead by example.
Mhm.
Um, panic that panic breeds panic, as we talked about, and I've become very aware over the years that if I panic and the team sees that, then they're going to panic. If I
Mhm.
stay calm, the team's going to remain calm and really understand that we can accomplish the task at hand. Um, that's kind of me.
Mhm.
What would you say is most natural to you? What have you seen in your leadership roles?
Uh, I tend to focus on controlling what I can and not losing my mind over things that I can't control. I have a crazy story, silly story. Um, there was a time that I drove my car to a work event several miles from our office, and I had a team member in the car with me, and we had to leave that event early in order to get back to the office to be part of a meeting that we were called to. And as I was backing out of my parking space, I smashed smack into a very nice, very expensive car, which was kind of sad. I knew that I had an audience in the car with me, so that really helped me stay in check and to stay calm. So I just got out of the car. I looked at the damage, which honestly didn't look all that bad, although it was very expensive to fix, and realized as I looked around the parking lot, there was no chance I was gonna find the owner of this car. There was not a soul. We were leaving early. There was not a soul other than the 2 of us in the parking lot at this time. And so I took control of what I could control. I could control my mindset, I could control my communication, and I could control whether or not we got back to the office on time. So I just got a business card out of my purse. I wrote a note on it, told the driver of this other car that I was the one that hit it. This is my number. Contact me. I'm not, just leaving you an alert here.
Right.
So, it was just a way to take control of the things that I could control, and quite honestly, my team talked about that for months and months after. It was just like, "We can't believe you did that. You stayed so calm," and inside, I was not calm. Inside, I was mad. Inside, I was embarrassed. Inside, I was full of dread for, how this was all gonna work out,
Right.
but I was able to control what I portrayed, and it definitely made an impact on the team.
So, to kind of wrap this up, for leaders that are facing a crisis, maybe a community divide or a workplace disruption, we need to take a tactical pause. We need to assess the situation and have that clear plan, whether we need to craft it or we already have it. You have to communicate openly. Here's our path forward. When your team sees your steady focus and follows suit, you will then know that you're headed in the right direction. You can delegate, encourage innovation, and keep everyone aligned. The result, your team's going to thrive. You're going to be delivering results. You're going to be staying united, and you're going to be growing stronger. The key is you're leading with integrity, elevating others, and really fulfilling that call to serve. That, to me, is what intentional, proactive leadership delivers.
So we end each episode with a weekly challenge. What is one thing that leaders can do this week to start to change how they're leading through times of uncertainty?
Yeah, I think, this week, strengthen your leadership in every scenario that arises. Just really kind of train yourself to consider in in each moment, and do it when you're not going through a crisis, but look at the situation, look at the problem, and consider what you can control and what you can't control.
Failure is stark and it's grim, and we never ever want to go there. But when a leader ignores the uncertainty that's churning and happening all around them, and they're just hoping that it passes, their team honestly grows anxious. Projects start to stall, trust erodes. It's as a leader, it's really easy to think, well, I'm the only one that's being affected by this. That is 100% not the case.
Right.
As a leader, your entire team and the people that your team influences as well is all disrupted by your ability or inability to lead through that. So, with calm, you start to build trust, you maintain the morale, you show people and model the behavior that you want to see them go through. So, it's extremely important just to stay in the game and keep your game face on and know that you can do this. And honestly, we're here to help.
Yeah, I would say that, it's important to understand that we have to first control what we can control, and then we model, then we move forward. Great leaders don't just endure uncertainty. They really kind of thrive by controlling what they can, modeling that resilience, and guiding their teams with intentional, principled steps. I I can't express enough to use calm to lead with clarity and purpose through whatever crisis you're facing, any storm that you're facing.
It's really the difference between a great leader and a mediocre leader, and how they navigate this situation. We want to thank our listeners for joining us today on the Elevate Your Call to Service podcast, and just remind you that we are here to help you. Reach out to us through our website, leleaders.com, if you would like to contact us about coaching opportunities or workshops that are available for leadership teams. We're here to help. And tune back in next time as we share our next episode.
Thanks for being here.
Ready to build a stronger team, improve your reputation, strengthen officer safety, and recruit top talent? Visit us at leleaders.com and schedule a call with us today. We'd love to discuss how our coaching programs, workshops, and keynote addresses can help you build proactive leaders in a reactive profession.
In the meantime, if you like what you've heard today, we'd love your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.